After a year of distance, of online learning, and new challenges, this school year is looking a lot different. As your family heads back to school, we're committed to getting you answers so you're prepared for what's next. Fox Carolina, your school station, presents Education in a Pandemic, sponsored by Wilderness at the Smokies.
Good evening, I'm Cody Alcorn.
And I'm Victoria Carmen. Things are changing every day as we navigate the pandemic. And tonight, we have a special half an hour dedicated to bringing you the latest as your family goes back to school. In tonight's education headlines, Dr. Anthony Fauci calling for mandatory vaccines for teachers as more children are contracting COVID-19. Health experts say because young children can't get the vaccine, they're making up a large part of new cases.
The young are now more vulnerable because they are in the cohort who's under-vaccinated, either children like 12 to 15, 12 to 18, who are eligible, who are not yet gotten vaccinated when they should, or the children who are too young to get vaccinated.
South Carolina's Attorney General says again that public school mask mandates are illegal. The mayor of Columbia issued one, and USC tried to as well. In July, lawmakers added a condition to the state budget saying schools receiving funding cannot require masks this year. Today, the Attorney General said the law has to be carried out, but Congress will have to address the question of masks in the future.
And the Greenville County School Board pushed back this week's meeting after the chairman tested positive for COVID. They plan to discuss funding COVID tests for students and hiring more teachers to help with increased demand for the virtual program. They'll take up those issues on August 24th.
And whether you love or hate virtual learning, the demand for it is making a comeback with this new wave of COVID-19 that we're seeing. And we did talk with some parents and students and, of course, the state's largest school district. We wanted to find out what worked, what didn't, and where online programs are going to go from here because things are changing weekly. Matt Koufax has been covering this extensively. He is live with a special report tonight. So, Matt, what did you find out?
Cody, Tori, everyone that I spoke to, the district, families, parents, students, they all tell me that admittedly the start to virtual back in 2020 when things shut down was kind of crazy because of how suddenly COVID changed everything. But the district says at the end of the day, it was like any other method. Families agree it worked for some and not so much for others. But they do tell me that they are planning on keeping this method of education around for the foreseeable future. Dr. Charlotte McDavid with Greenville County Schools says the district has learned a lot from last year.
We have teachers and students and parents who are in different places with technology. So we learned that differentiation for all, as we call them, learners was very important.
She and Associate Superintendent Jeff McCoy say they know it was a bit of a rocky start to virtual in 2020.
Really, we put together the full virtual school for 23,000 kids in about 6 weeks.
But they believe they've evolved and made things more efficient with every click.
We believe that there's always going to be a need for some level of virtual.
This year, the district says they'll have more of an emphasis on live online instruction. That said,
I think that the value of the brick and mortar experience has grown a new appreciation for parents.
Parents like Matt Spalding, who say e-learning was tough for his high school sophomore daughter, Ella.
She tried her hardest, and when the grades went from here to here, what felt like overnight, we knew that we had to do whatever it is to get her on track with what works for her.
Ella also adds something about things just didn't stick for her, which is why she's excited to be heading back in person.
It's really hard for me because I need to ask questions to learn and I really couldn't at all. I like going and being with my friends and actually talking to them.
On the flip side, parents like Cherish Benton and her daughter Chloe say that while they prefer in person too, they didn't mind virtual.
My kids logged on every day. They participated every day. They did the work that they were instructed to do, and they were fine.
They're also choosing brick and mortar this year, but Chloe, heading into middle school, told us she wouldn't be too upset if things changed again because it worked for them when it had to.
I'm pretty independent. It was pretty easy for me because I just do a lot of things by myself.
And that, says McCoy, is the big takeaway.
We're going to take a broad stroke and say virtual is not for any child. That's just simply not true. Virtual should be a choice for those parents who say, this is what's best for our family and best for our child. Those experiences are important for our kids to have, and I think we have to, our big piece takeaway from that, even to our politicians, has been we're about school choice as well.
To each their own, kind of how we're starting this school year. GCS tells me that they have actually reopened their enrollment window for virtual education. So if you are still interested, you can, I should say, still enroll. They say there's not really a deadline now. They know things are changing all the time, and they're trying to balance those concerns that families have with new things like the surge in COVID cases and the Delta variant. Guys, back to you.
All right, Matt, thanks so much. And Greenville County has just under 3,000 students enrolled in virtual school this year. That's almost 20,000 less than we saw last year.
Yeah, one of our viewers, Noemi, asked if parents can move their children to online classes because of those rising COVID numbers we're seeing. And Greenville County schools tell us that they will allow students to move to virtual learning, and they won't turn students away, although a new state law says districts could face financial penalties if more than 5% of students are virtual. And make sure you send us your back to school questions. Just scan the code you see on your screen right now with your smartphone, or head to foxcarolina.com and we'll make sure to work to get you an answer and bring that to you during our newscasts.
We are committed to you, and back to school is here, but some schools are still trying to find teachers. Experts say South Carolina has been heading to a teacher shortage for a year. It's not something just that came out of nowhere. The pandemic, though, is just making this issue worse.
But Fox Carolina's Grace Runkle tells us what some say is a possible solution.
It's 1 month before classes start at Southside High School, and Principal Andre Dukes is still trying to hire teachers.
Unfortunately, we've been recruiting since February. It's been very difficult.
He's hoping to fill his last 2 special education positions at the Greenville County Schools virtual job fair. That sound means a candidate has entered the chat, but actually making the hire hasn't been easy.
Science, math, foreign language, SPEDs were your hard to fill positions, but now every position has become hard to fill.
The South Carolina Department of Education says they had an increase in vacant positions last year and saw more young teachers leave their jobs. But Dukes is seeing another trend.
The majority of the people that we've met this year, they're coming outside of education.
Brand new second grade teacher Tina Vile is one of them.
The first day of school, see? My former career was marketing, so I was used to talking to people and having my clients and being in meetings with them.
She started as a sub at Bells Crossing Elementary, then decided to make it official, earning her master's in student teaching during the height of the pandemic. It was a rough but reaffirming year.
All that kept going through my mind was, these kids are struggling just like my own kids.
A perspective she's not sure she would have had back in college.
I think that the older you get, the more life experience you gain. You see what your strong suits are. You see how it can partner well with different careers.
Greenville County Schools has their own alternative certification program, allowing people to teach and train at the same time. 50 are taking part this year. The district says that's their biggest group yet. Back at Southside, Duke sees more certification programs and career changers filling in those staffing gaps.
The needs are not going to be met just from kids coming from college.
Reporting in Greenville County, Grace Runkle, Fox Carolina News.
And we reached out to see how many employees at upstate school districts have received the COVID-19 vaccine. 10 school districts told us that they did not have any data ready. Most of those are just not collecting it due to privacy reasons. Of the districts we heard back from, most only had some estimates for us. Abbeville County says around 40% were vaccinated before they left for summer. Anderson District 1 says at least 63% were already vaccinated or plan to get the shot. Anderson 4 does not have official data, but they estimate more than 75% were vaccinated in the spring. Anderson 5 offered a $500 incentive for full-time employees, and they say around 72% are now vaccinated, with that incentive causing about a 14% increase. And Greenville says around 30% of employees were vaccinated during spring clinics. Greenwood 52 saw more than 42% sign up for their clinics before summer, and Lawrence 56 estimates around 40%.
Well, as we watch developments due to the spike in the Delta variant across the country, we did want to find out how the new virus strain could affect your children. Now, through most of the pandemic, health officials said children were less impacted by COVID-19, but now they tell us more children are getting sick in the current surge, and more kids are being hospitalized for COVID-19. The rise in cases is overwhelmingly affecting unvaccinated people and children under 12. They still can't get the shot. Experts say masks are key here and that parents should explain to their kids why masks will help.
When you explain to children the reason that you're asking them to do it, just like you ask them to put on a jacket when it's cool outside, that this is something that is going to give them some protection, and that it's something that they all got very good at last year. Children are very resilient. They learn to adapt. They do very well in the environment. Even mask, it doesn't interrupt their learning. It doesn't cause any long-term consequences.
Now, health officials also say you should remind your kids to wash their hands and practice social distancing.
Extra screen time during the pandemic may be causing vision problems for students. We're breaking down what you need to know from the experts.
Plus, Greenville County Schools upgrading their bus fleet. How this will change your child's commute. That's coming up straight ahead.
And here are your back-to-school dates for the upstate Coney County elementary school students. They start on Monday, along with Cherokee County schools in all of Spartanburg County, Greenville County schools, Abbeville, all districts in Anderson County, and both Lawrence 55 and 56. They start on Tuesday, and Union County, they'll start on August 23rd.
You're watching Education in a Pandemic on Fox Carolina, your school station, sponsored by Wilderness at the Smokies. We now return you to Education in a Pandemic on Fox Carolina, your school station, sponsored by Wilderness at the Smokies.
Another unexpected side effect of the pandemic showing itself among children, nearsightedness. A report published this year by the American Medical Association shows more children are suffering from it due to less time outside and more time on screens. Fox Carolina's Jarvis Robertson has been digging into some tips to help if you or your child are struggling to see. He joins us live now with more.
Well, that's right, Victoria. Squinting and also headaches, as well as blurred vision, are classic signs of nearsightedness. And get this, a report says nearly 30% of the U.S. population struggles with it. For that reason, a lot of children may be having a hard time seeing, especially if they're participating in virtual learning.
I'm Ella O'Neill, and I'm 8 years old.
And for much of her life, she's worn glasses.
I like it because of all the colors and because I can see better, but I don't like it is because I have to take them off and put them on.
After much screen time thanks to the coronavirus pandemic, she quickly started to notice issues with her vision. Ella knew something wasn't right, so she told her mom.
After I was on the screen short while, I had a lot of squinting, itching, and a lot of headaches.
Bottom line is that's not good for the eyes.
Dr. Jeanette White is a pediatric ophthalmologist at Prisma Health. She says around the world, this is a rising issue.
Many more children are becoming nearsighted. That's the main issue. And there's other problems they're getting as well. Some children, their eyes are starting to cross, presumably from the prolonged fixation up close.
Dr. White says hereditary and environmental factors play a role in nearsightedness. Getting children away from the phone or tablet can allow the eye muscles to relax and refocus. For that reason, Ella's mother has signed her up to play tennis.
We know that children that are outside a minimum of 8 to 10 hours a week are much less likely to become nearsighted.
It's good, actually. I get 2 hours of sunshine every day.
In addition, there's another form of treatment that's been used in more recent years.
In fact, we have a very good eye drop treatment that will slow, if not stop, the worsening of nearsightedness in the majority of children's eyes.
And Ella is one of Dr. White's patients.
Well, at first I was actually scared. I thought it might be really impossible and difficult, but then it was easy.
Vision is certainly important to student success. If you want to help your eyes, one thing experts say to remember is the 20-20-20 rule.
And all that means is every 20 minutes, for about 20 seconds, look at least 20 feet away.
Now, health experts say that although kids are not back in school right now, this is the perfect time for them to get eye exams because you never know what may be wrong with their vision. Even for those students who have returned to school, it's still not too late to get those eye exams. We're live here in downtown Greenville tonight. I'm Jarvis Robertson, Fox Carolina News.
Jarvis, thanks. Another health issue not talked about enough, mental health. South Carolina passed a new law to help save young lives. This summer, Governor McMaster signed the Student Identification Card Suicide Prevention Act. It requires public and private schools to have the number of the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline on school-issued IDs. This is specifically for 7th through 12th grade. Schools are also required to add at least one other resource that fits the needs of their students. And another piece of advice, talk to your children. Have an open line of communication.
Oh, absolutely. And with the increase in stress and anxiety during the pandemic, we asked a child psychiatrist what warning signs could indicate your child needs help. Here's what they had to say.
I think any changes in behavior that you see should be something to take note of. Kids tend to express their anxiety and depression in a different way than we sometimes see with adults. So excessive worry or sadness, unhealthy eating habits, unhealthy sleeping habits, a change in kind of focus, concentration. I think all of those would be really big indicators.
And the good news here, there are a lot of resources available. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline has that number you can call or text. Prisma Health's Connect Center offers mental health resources, and so does South Carolina's Community Crisis Response and Intervention and Mental Health America. We also have all of those numbers and more information, foxcarolina.com.
Well, we are committed to you here at Fox Carolina, and the Greenville County School District is upgrading its fleet of buses. They're going to be propane powered. Yes, Fox Carolina's Grace Runkle. She's been looking into this in the past and takes us inside these new rides.
On Sundays, you can find Pastor Doug Carroll preaching at church. But once classes start for Greenville County Schools, he'll be leading a different crowd.
It's very important to me to know every child by their name.
With the new year comes a new bus, so we hitched a ride to test it out. Unlike his old diesel-powered one, this bus runs on propane.
I had this particular bus. It was an older bus that didn't have air conditioning. I knew the quirks of it. I knew how to take a hill with it. It'll take me probably a few weeks on a new bus to get that feel.
The state is spending $24 million on a fleet of 235 propane-powered buses.
There's not as much wear and tear on the internal engine parts as there would on a normal diesel engine.
The propane engines are better for the environment and the bottom line.
How do the buses that you guys have today compare to the buses that you grew up riding?
Well, actually, some of the buses that we still have are in the fleet from when I was riding. They're spares, of course, and some of these buses are actually replacing them.
The new buses will drop the average age of a state school bus by 2 years. And while students probably won't notice a different engine, they will notice some of the other features. 360-degree cameras, double stop arms, and Carol's favorite, air conditioning.
While I had a little nostalgia for that bus, I'm not going to be that sad to leave it.
James expects to see more alternative fuel buses.
We're going to start to see some electric buses. The electric-powered industry is getting better and better every day.
And that's fine for Carol, because the better the bus runs, the more he can focus on his favorite part of the job.
You never know what's happening behind the door before the student walks out. Greeting the kids with a smile, trying to make them feel as comfortable as possible, to know that you're going to do everything you can to get them to school safely.
Reporting in Greenville County, Grace Runkle, Fox Carolina News.
The one thing I got out of there is air-conditioned buses. I wish I had that at one time. Well, the district says the new propane fleet expected to arrive later this fall, and this is a story we actually followed for a while. The funding, you'll remember this maybe, comes from the state's settlement with Volkswagen over false emissions data back in 2019, and also a young kid who really pushed for these buses to get to Greenville. And you can look up that on foxcarolina.com.
Yeah, so cool to see his vision coming to life. Well, still to come, COVID-19 caused a lot of problems for sports last year. And will we see the same this fall? We're breaking down what you can expect.
Plus, homeschool students take the field with a unique football program. We'll give you an inside look next.
And more back-to-school dates for you in Western North Carolina. Graham, Haywood, Madison, Mitchell, Swain, Transylvania, Jackson, and Yancey counties all start back up on Monday. Buncombe County kicks off class on Tuesday. Meanwhile, Asheville City Schools, as well as Henderson, McDowell, Polk, Rutherford, and Macon counties start August 23rd.
We now return you to Education in a Pandemic on Fox Carolina, your school station. Sponsored by Wilderness at the Smokies.
Fall sports season starting up, our message to all of our schools: do what you've done last year to get you to this point before. Those things that you did that practice safety and sanitation and good hygiene, do that again so we can have a chance to play this year just as we did last year. The thing that we've got to be sure of is we keep the safety of the players at the forefront.
SCHSL Commissioner Jerome Singleton acknowledges the concern from COVID still very much there in regards to high school sports. Daniel High, the defending 3A football champs, were set to face West Ashley in week 0. The Wildcats forced to cancel, now in COVID protocol, until August 16th. They won't have enough time to prepare for the opener. As of now, the high school league recommending coaches and athletes take precautions like masks and social distancing, but they're not requiring it. Hey there, I'm Aaron Cheslock. The South Carolina High School League, of course, not the only place where the preps can play football. Sports anchor Amanda Keene brings us a story of kids who do schooling a little differently and still manage to get out on the football field.
With traditional schools back in the classroom full-time, there are still those kids who prefer to learn at home. But what happens when those homeschool kids want to play football this season? Well, they come here and they play for the Canes.
The Greenville Hurricanes program has 12 sports available for homeschool students who want to participate in athletics. The football team has kids ranging from middle school all the way to grade 12, and they're starting their practices just like any other team. But for them, it takes a little more dedication just to get to practice, as opposed to traditional school students who get to walk to the field right after class.
They'll do their homeschooling things in the morning and get their schooling done early, and then they go to jobs every day. So they're coming straight from a job here, there, anywhere, and driving themselves here and getting here. So they understand the commitment level it takes to succeed at this level.
Players range from homeschool to small school students who don't have a football program. Not two kids are the same, but that's what makes this team so unique.
It's a little different for sure, but I think it works out for the best. We all kind of have our own story to tell, and that it combines into something really special.
Now this team will travel all across the state and even cross state lines into Georgia so that they can have a full 11-game varsity schedule. In Greer, I'm Amanda Keene, Fox Carolina Sports.
Amanda, thanks. Of course, we're gearing up for Friday Night Blitz, kicking off next week. Our first game of the week for the 2021 season, Gaffney at Spartanburg. Should be a great one. Friday Night Blitz returns next Friday, August 20th at 10:30.
I can't believe high school football is back. And after the break, what college enrollment looks like during the pandemic, the advice advisors have for students applying.
Plus, we reveal the results of our school supply jam donation drive. We'll have all those details when we come back.
We now return you to Education in a Pandemic on Fox Carolina, your school station. Sponsored by Wilderness at the Smokies.
With many students struggling during the pandemic, we did want to see if universities are seeing changes in test scores and grades from high school seniors. We stopped by Furman to ask them about what they have seen along with testing, and they tell us that they are looking at how to evaluate applicants without scores with the changing atmosphere. However, they say they have not seen a decrease in scores or grades and actually had a nearly 40% increase in applications too. Their advice to college applicants: be upfront about your pandemic struggles because we're in different times and they are looking at things a lot differently now.
To be honest, be transparent, brag,
It's not a time to be humble in your application. Put your best foot forward. Tell us if you've had a challenge with e-learning, tell us. But also take the opportunity to brag and tell us what you've been able to accomplish and maybe what you've learned from some of those hardships and from some of those struggles.
We also reached out to Wofford and USC. Wofford tells us they have had test optional for the past 4 years, but they saw an increase in applications who choose not to submit test scores. Meanwhile, USC is continuing their test optional policy through next year.
And we want to take a minute to thank everybody who donated to our Fox Carolina School Supply Jam. Together with our sponsor Ingles, we received hundreds of donations. We packed 40 large boxes full of those school supplies. They'll be distributed to 10 different schools. And we really just want to give all of you a huge shout out. So thank you for all of your help. And thanks for staying up with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much. And make sure you wake up with the morning news. They start bright and early at 4:30 and they're on until 10.
Thanks for watching Fox Carolina News. Watch us live wherever you are, on our mobile, on our streaming news app. And you can also watch us on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV.